The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled trade routes, managed conflicts between species, and maintained what they called the Great Order. But they had never faced anything like humanity. When the Terrans first appeared on the galactic stage, the Council dismissed them as primitive creatures from a small blue planet on the edge of nowhere. They gave humans the lowest status possible and restricted them to a handful of dying colonies. For 50 years, humanity accepted this position. They traded quietly, followed the rules, and stayed in their corner of space. The Council believed humans were weak, peaceful, and easily controlled. They were wrong about all three things. The war began when the Empire decided to expand its territory. They were a reptilian species known for their cruelty and military strength. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of beings. When they attacked the human colony on New Geneva, they expected an easy victory. Instead, they found resistance unlike anything they had experienced before. The colonists fought back with weapons, tools, and their bare hands. Farmers became soldiers overnight. Teachers turned into medics. Children carried ammunition to the front lines. They killed thousands, but they could not break the human spirit. For 6 months, New Geneva held against an enemy 10 times their number. When news of the attack reached Earth, something changed in humanity. The old governments put aside their differences. Factories that made cars started making tanks. Universities designed new weapons. Millions of young men and women joined the newly formed Terran Marine Corps. Within 1 year, humanity had built a war machine that made the galaxy nervous. The Council ordered humanity to stand down. They said the attack was an internal matter and humans had no right to respond. They threatened sanctions, blockades, and even military action if the Terrans did not obey. The human response came in the form of a single message: "We protect our own." General led the first Terran fleet into space. He was an old soldier who had fought in 3 wars on Earth before joining the space program. His hair was, his face was, and his eyes held a fire that made even his own officers uncomfortable. Under his command were 50,000 Marines, the finest warriors humanity had ever produced. They met them at the border with their largest fleet. They had 300 warships against humanity's 42. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the fleet was scattered, debris floating in the void. Human ships were damaged but victorious. The galaxy watched in shock as the primitive Terrans destroyed one of the oldest military powers in known space. General did not stop to celebrate. He pushed deeper into territory, liberating slave worlds as he went. On each planet, the Marines found horrors that strengthened their resolve. They had been cruel masters. They worked their slaves to death in mines and factories. They used them for entertainment in fighting pits. They experimented on them in laboratories that made even hardened soldiers vomit. The liberated peoples looked at the human Marines with confusion at first. They had never seen conquerors who gave them food, medicine, and freedom. They had never met soldiers who cried at the sight of suffering. The Terrans were strange creatures who fought like demons but acted like angels. Word spread across the galaxy. The humans were different. 6 months into the campaign, General received orders that changed everything. Intelligence had discovered that the Galactic Council was secretly supporting the. They were providing weapons, supplies, and military advisors. The war was not just against one empire. It was against the entire galactic establishment. The Council met on Sanctuary, a massive space station at the heart of the galaxy. It was considered neutral ground, protected by ancient laws and powerful defenses. No military force had ever attacked Sanctuary in 12,000 years. The Council members felt safe there, surrounded by their guards and their privilege. They did not feel safe for long. The Terran fleet appeared without warning. Somehow, the humans had developed a new type of faster-than-light travel that bypassed all detection systems. One moment, the space around Sanctuary was empty. The next moment, 42 human warships surrounded the station like wolves around a wounded animal. Admiral Sarah commanded the fleet from her flagship, the TNS Defiance. She was younger than but just as fierce. Her family had been killed in the New Geneva attack. She had joined the Marines the day after she buried them. Now she sat in her command chair, looking at the station that had allowed her people to die. "This is Admiral of the Terran Navy," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are here to deliver justice. All council members will surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The council panicked. They had thousands of guards but no real military. They had spent centuries letting others fight their wars. Now they faced warriors who had spent the same time perfecting the art of combat. General led the Marine assault personally. 10,000 soldiers dropped from the sky in armored pods that slammed into the station's outer hull. They cut through the metal with plasma torches and poured inside like water through a broken dam. The station's guards tried to stop them, but they might as well have tried to stop a hurricane. The Marines moved through the station with terrible efficiency. They had trained for this moment in simulations, in exercises, in the harsh environments of a dozen different worlds. They fought in teams, covering each other, advancing step by step through corridors that had never known violence. The guards fell before them like leaves in autumn. Colonel James led the team that reached the council chambers first. He was a tall man from Nigeria, descended from warriors who had fought against European colonizers centuries ago. His ancestors would have been proud of him as he kicked open the ancient doors and faced the rulers of the galaxy. The council chamber was vast and beautiful. Crystal columns rose toward a ceiling painted with stars. Holographic displays showed maps of empires that had risen and fallen over. At the center sat the 7 council members, representatives of the oldest and most powerful species in known space. They looked at Colonel with a mixture of fear and contempt. High Counselor, a tall being with silver skin and black eyes, spoke first. "You have made a terrible mistake, human. This action will unite the galaxy against your species. You will be exterminated." Removed his helmet. His face was calm, almost peaceful. "High Counselor, you funded the attack on New Geneva. You provided weapons that killed our children. You sat in this beautiful room and decided that human lives did not matter." "You are a young species," replied. "You do not understand how the galaxy works. The strong rule and the weak serve. This is the natural order." "We understand perfectly," said. "We simply reject your order." More Marines entered the chamber, escorting captured officials and guards. General arrived last, walking slowly through the doors like a man entering his own home. He looked at the council members without hatred, without anger. He looked at them with something worse, disappointment. 12,000 years, said quietly. You had 12,000 years to build something good. Instead, you built a system that rewards cruelty and punishes compassion. You allowed empires like the to exist because they served your interests. You let billions suffer because their suffering did not affect your comfort. "What do you want?" asked, his confidence finally breaking. "We want change," replied. "Real change. We are going to tear down your corrupt system and build something new, something better." The broadcast of the Council's arrest spread across the galaxy in hours. On 1,000 worlds, beings watched in amazement as human Marines led the ancient rulers away in restraints. They saw General announce the dissolution of the old order. They heard him promise that a new council would be formed, one that represented all species equally, one that protected the weak instead of exploiting them. The reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated, dancing in the streets of their cities. Others feared what the humans might do with their power. A few tried to resist, sending fleets to challenge the Terran forces. They learned quickly that the Marines were not interested in negotiation. But the humans proved to be different kinds of conquerors. They did not establish an empire of their own. They did not demand tribute or slaves. Instead, they helped rebuild the worlds they had destroyed. They shared technology freely. They established schools and hospitals. They taught other species the skills they had learned through centuries of hard survival on Earth. The new Galactic Assembly met 1 year after the fall of Sanctuary. Representatives from 200 species gathered to create a government based on human ideals, democracy, equality, and justice. General, now the most famous human in the galaxy, refused any position of power. He said his job was fighting, not ruling. Historians would later call this moment the Second Dawn. It marked the beginning of a new era, one shaped by the strange creatures from a small blue planet who refused to accept that might made right. The Terran Marines had landed on the alien capital with weapons in their hands. They left having changed the hearts and minds of an entire galaxy. On Earth, people celebrated but also mourned. The war had cost humanity dearly. Millions had died fighting for freedom they would never see. Their names were carved into monuments across human space. Their sacrifice would be remembered for generations. Admiral visited New Geneva after the war ended. The colony was slowly rebuilding. Children played in streets that had once been battlefields. Farmers planted crops in soil that had been soaked with blood. Life continued as it always did. She found a small memorial near the center of the old city. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the initial attack, including her family. She stood there for a long time, reading the names, remembering the faces. A young girl approached her, curious about the famous admiral. "Did you know someone here?" she asked. Smiled sadly. "I did, they were very brave." "My teacher says the humans saved the galaxy," the girl said. "She says we are heroes." Knelt down to meet the girl's eyes. "We did what we had to do. We protected the people we loved. That is all anyone can do." The girl nodded solemnly, then ran off to play with her friends. Watched her go, feeling something she had not felt in years: hope. The war was over. The galaxy was changing. And somewhere among the stars, the children of New Geneva would grow up in a universe that was a little bit kinder because a few thousand Terran Marines had refused to accept injustice. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not their weapons, not their ships, not their terrible capacity for war. It was their stubborn belief that things could be better, that suffering was not inevitable, that even the smallest person could change the universe. The Terran Marines had proven it with blood and sacrifice. The rest of the galaxy would spend centuries trying to understand how they did it.